Welcome to the New Day podcast. My name is John. I'm the pastor here at New Day Church, and we're filming a very special episode today, a one-of-a-kind episode like we've never done before, telling a very personal and important story in my life and the life of my family. I want to introduce my wife, Halcie. Say hi, baby.
Hey.
We've been married how long now?
12 years.
12 years. We have 3 beautiful kids, and we've been able to be leaders here at New Day Church and see all the work that God has done here and replanting the church I grew up in, and now seeing all the wonderful fruit that God's produced through this place. But today we're telling the very personal, real talk story of my wife's brain cancer diagnosis. She has been walking with brain cancer, and not just any brain cancer, but glioblastoma, which is considered to be the worst kind of brain cancer, for the last 2.5 years. And it has totally upended our life in every way. It's been horrible. It's been beautiful. It's been difficult. It's been transcendent and endearing. And we're just going to talk about it. And we're doing this for a few reasons. Number one, we love to just talk about real life stuff here on the podcast, but also we talk about this with people all the time. And so it's my hope this can become almost like a reference video for people who want to know the story of what's going on and what's happened. And I mean, this is a story like it's going to be hard to believe some of the details we're going to talk about here today. And this is going to be the longest episode we've ever done. So if you're just like running an errand and, putting a podcast on really quick, you probably want to come back to this one because it's going to take a while. And there's going to be a lot of details, and we're going to start the first half just talking about the story, everything that's happened, give you insight into what it's like. Most people wonder, what would it be like if we got the worst diagnosis in the world, or we were given a bad prognosis, or we encountered a really hard situation? And today we're going to talk about that specifically here on the podcast. So really quick, I want to just kind of tell the story. And so I want to start with before brain cancer entered our story, Halcie. Who were we and who were you? Let's give people a context.
I just married to my best friend, John, pastor. I love it. Love the church. Love you. Love God. Love the church. Love my kids. A nurse by trade. Did a lot of different things from there. But yes, it was right before I'd always wanted to work with you at the church. And so I had 3 weeks where I got to work at the church.
So we'll talk about that in a second. But I mean, okay. I would say that we were your normal, busy, young ministry family. I mean,
That's
I remember you would what was unique about you was we just had our 3rd kid, and you could watch the kids all day, and I would come home and you would just be not even frazzled. You were mom of the year in my eyes. You could manage a lot. You were doing a lot. You'd watch all the kids. You'd be working, doing whatever job you're doing at the time. You were a nurse for 10 years, right?
9 years.
About 10 years, yeah. And, you were a faithful, very involved pastor's wife doing any ministry. You've been the kids director. You've been on the worship team. You've led women's retreat. You've spoken at stuff. You were just like that pastor's wife, very nice. Knew everybody in the church for the most part. And that was you. We were very busy. We had 3 young kids blowing and going. I always felt busy. We were coming out of COVID too. That's important to note. So we just kind of gone through that. But once again, I think we were the family always trying to help everybody else. The idea that we'd ever need help, or that people would be serving us in that way was it's we exist to serve. And we were that family. But all of that changed on December 7th, 2021. But before we talk about that day, talk about, did you have any symptoms? What were the symptoms when you look back on it, the things that maybe at the time you didn't realize were symptoms of brain cancer, but looking back, you could tell maybe something was going on. Share some of those.
Well, I don't know what it was. That I had a couple things that would happen. It's really weird. So just a side note is brain stuff there aren't really good words for things. I remember that Alice in Wonderland, that whole thing.
Well, explain to them what that is.
Okay. So this is stuff that it's and it's hard to explain, but I would just be going to bed or whatever. And all of a sudden it felt like everything is so like I'm so big, and it's not like, but it was like I felt like a whole house, and I'm the house, and it's in my brain, stuff like that. And it was really weird feeling and hard to explain. And then it would just kind of like stop. And I remember, I think I was pregnant with Ellie, our second kid at that time, the first time that experience was, and it was
now this is like 2 years before.
Yes.
This is 2 years before.
But that one, I think it happened like once, and then 6 months later it happened again. So I kind of just like,
so let me tell you something really, really crazy. So I remember the first night you experienced that. We were in bed together. I remember going to sleep like normal, and you started saying, John, you were like, something's wrong. I feel like I'm getting so big. Yeah. I feel like I'm getting so big. Like my legs and my arms are expanding, and I feel like I'm filling up the room. You were having this really weird experience.
It's really weird.
And of course, your spouse is saying something. You're like, okay, whatever, go to sleep, But I could tell it meant like it was kind of bothering you. And then it stopped. You felt normal again. And
like 3 minutes.
I will never forget this. This is a true story. I remember you said to me, John, what if I have a brain tumor? You said that to me. And me being the comforting spouse was like, there's no way it was a brain tumor, like, I don't think so, because I'd also never heard of that being connected to it. And that happened a couple times to you.
Yes. Well, and it got like more, like it was very rare.
You didn't know what it was. It's called Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Was it Emily, one of our friends, that found out what that was, or was that something else?
I don't know.
Somehow we found out.
You did. I thought you found it. Anyway, I don't know.
I think I found the intrusive OCD thing or whatever.
Which we can talk about that if you
want to. Anyway, but there's just, it's a really, really crazy thing. You can look it up. It's Alice in Wonderland syndrome. But you experienced it, but then that went away. And then also talk about the intrusive thoughts, OCD stuff.
It's like gross. I don't know. I think I have it. I actually, honestly, recently have felt much less of it, but just like the OCD things where people use it as like a joke, like OCD, but when it's real OCD, it's like, you can't control your thoughts and you can't control what it is. And it was just ugly and terrible and dark and horrible. And things would just like pop into my brain, and I would flip. But then I'm like, is this my sin? Is this like, I don't know what to do. And so that was that dark. Like OCD is normal. I feel like OCD is, but this one was. I
want to be clear too on this, that like, just because you have intrusive thoughts, a lot of people have intrusive thoughts. It's almost never a brain tumor. So, a lot of people that I talk to, especially as a pastor, deal with intrusive thoughts.
But this was like a dark, evil.
It was different.
It was gross and terrifying. And it was that's worse than the cancer stuff, for sure.
Yeah. And so, but then talk about, so that was like about a year or two before, when you look back on it, these kind of weird things happening. Talk about the 6 months before. I remember a few things, but talk about the things in that season before. It was interesting because we just come out of COVID.
Yeah. And COVID, for me personally, I really enjoyed the season with my kids.
Yeah.
That's bad.
In a weird way for me, it was kind of the same thing where like honestly, our church was pretty unified and pretty strong. It wouldn't have a lot of drama. And so
I got to hang out with my kids.
I didn't like it because it was like, you lost people because no one's coming to church, all that kind of stuff. But I agree. But after, I was supposed to go on my first sabbatical after like 7 years of ministry, where I got 6 weeks off just to rest up and recover. I was supposed to go during 2020, but that didn't happen. And so I did it the next year, 2021, where basically we got 6 weeks off as a family. We went to Tennessee, did some really cool stuff. But coming back off of that, I was supposed to come back like refreshed and ready to go after a long season. But then that's when all this stuff started happening. So talk about some of the symptoms right up there. I remember you, looking back on it, you put things together. The first thing for you was your vision was getting worse.
I turned 30. And so I'm like, well, when you're 30, I guess that's when you need glasses. But I guess it came kind of quickly. The Alice in Wonder thing was getting more frequent.
So you had the vision issues.
I
remember seeing you write on a piece of paper, need to get my eyes checked. And I remember just thinking like, that's just interesting. Like it was kind of out of nowhere, which I guess can be a normal thing. Another thing, speaking of the vision thing, I remember I was in bed one morning, you got up early and took the kids somewhere. And I was in bed. I heard this loud like sound, like this loud like hit or whatever. And I kind of sat there for a moment and was thinking, do I want to get up? Like something just happened outside. And I eventually got up. I waited like 30 seconds and got up. I was just tired. And I looked outside and I didn't see anything, but I will never forget. It's still seared in my mind. I still remember seeing like the little smell good tree thing in my car, kind of waving back and forth as if like the car had just moved or something. And turns out what it was is that you had actually backed in and rear-ended one of our cars with our other car in the driveway as you were taking the kids to school, but then you just took off anyway.
Sorry about that.
And I think you called me and said, I'm so sorry. I just whatever. Cause I was like, wait, something just happened. But once again, like, people that happens, people rear end cars and, I don't want to make a woman joke right now, but I could, but like the reality is like, that was it. That wasn't like you, because what we know now is you have a portion of your vision that's just gone. So when you were backing the car up, you literally did not see it. It wasn't like a mistake that you made. It was like in your mind, that part wasn't there. So you rear-ended the car. So that happened. Trying to think what else happened. There's something else. You got really sick randomly. Talk about that.
I don't remember that. So you can tell me about that. I don't remember.
One day, it was like, this is like a month before. So once again, she's having the vision issues, but she's trying to get her eyes checked. She's backed into the car, kind of consistently talking about the Alice in Wonderland thing. But honestly, kind of feels like we've gotten beyond that at that point. Another big one was, I remember there was like a month before you were diagnosed where you got really sick.
Okay.
You just did not feel good. Like
I was asleep, so I don't really remember.
You were really sick and you were just in bed all day. You were sick. And I feel so bad now. I thought you had COVID because at that point we had neither of us had COVID yet. And so I remember like kind of telling you like to go get COVID tested because I thought, she just doesn't feel good, but you're such a trooper and you're normally able to push through. But looking back, you looked pretty sick. You went and got tested for COVID and you were negative for COVID. You came back. You said, I just want to sleep the rest of the day. You were in bed the entire day. The next day you woke up, you were totally fine.
Yeah.
Like it was like nothing had ever happened. And I remember that was kind of weird.
Oh, and I felt I like was on the floor for a second.
Well, yeah, we're going to get into that too. So anyway, so that was it. So there's vision issues, the Alice in Wonderland thing. But once again, we're busy. We're doing a lot. We're not thinking that this is like, there's something really wrong. Until the day that it happened. On December 7th, 2021, our lives changed forever. And so I will tell what I remember, because I remember the day more clearly than you do, because you were out of it for a good portion of the day. But what do you remember? So you just started working at the church.
Yeah.
A lifelong dream of ours. Halcie has always had a calling to ministry, always worked as a nurse, and you were like a faithful pastor's wife. But finally, we were on staff together. You were working part-time doing connections and some other stuff. And 3 weeks in, so now our rhythm in the morning is we go to church. You drop the kids off and we both go to the church. We drive separate. But what do you remember from December 7th, 2021 on Tuesday? I think
I've wasn't it before we left? I was just got on the floor for a second. I don't know. I just lay down on the floor for a second, but then I got back up. And I felt fine, like totally fine. I guess I thought maybe I'm dizzy or something. I don't know. Yeah. And the thing is, I think, I felt fine the whole morning. It was great morning. Enjoyed it. It was great. And I was going to try and figure out how to do, I was in what's that called? The back loft thing. No, not the back loft.
The sound booth.
I was in the sound booth.
You learning how to do like clips
and all of that stuff. All the social media stuff. And then I just started not feeling good, like really weird. Like, again, these are hard. I guess like dizzy is not the right word, but just totally just out of it. And I was like, I just need to be tough. You're fine. Kind of was my thought. You're fine. But then I was trying to tell, am I just making this up? Am I being extra? Like, am I being whatever? Or you're fine. You just stop, just go. And then I was like, I guess, I don't know. I guess it's
important to note that you never get sick and never gotten sick. I'm the baby when I get sick. It's like a guy, like what's the joke where it's like when a woman, has a baby, she finally knows how hard it is when a man has a cold.
Yeah.
That's
it's hard. It's hard for you.
I always seem to get more sick and things hit me harder or I'm just weaker. But on that day, you were not feeling well. So my perspective on that was, I remember we were getting ready in the morning, and you were about to take the kids, but we're both kind of running around the house getting ready. And I walked up to our room to go get something or put deodorant on or something. And I walk into our room, and I just remember you're just laying on the ground. And I remember thinking, that's really weird. Like, I just remember thinking that's odd. But once again, and you're never thinking anything, worst case. And so I'm like, that's just kind of weird. Like, I'm the person that would randomly be tired and just lay down on our bedroom floor. I would do that, but you would never do that. And the kids are running around downstairs, and you're like laying down. And I could tell you're just laying down for a second, but it was just odd. It was like unusual behavior. But then you got up and you were fine, and you dropped the kids off at my mom's house because my mom was watching the kids that day. And what my mom says is, this is in the morning, she was like, she could kind of tell you were kind of rambling and talking weird. You were just kind of rambling and saying different things, but it wasn't incoherent. It wasn't so out there, but you were just kind of off. And then you came to the church, and then, you were trying to work on something before. I had a meeting I had to go to, but I was kind of going over something with you, and you kept saying like, I just don't feel good. I just don't feel good. I just don't feel good. And I was like, I'm like in the kind of husband mode where I'm like, okay, if you don't feel good, just go lay down, like just, if you're sick, go home. But you kept wanting to push through. And so I was, if I'm honest, a little frustrated, because it was like, you just kept saying that, but then you weren't taking any medicine or doing anything. You were just continuing to talk about it. So anyway, so then I went to a meeting actually with Britton on our team, our worship leader. He had just come to the church. It was like his first on-ramp meeting, and I'm in that meeting. And what happened was, after I left you and you were working on what you're working on, you called my mom. And how it went down was, she said you were just talking really weird and really out of it. And she was concerned about you. So she called my sister, who does the preschool here, and said, hey, you need to go find Halcie. Something's wrong with her right now. But she wasn't there. So she called another person at the church, one of our friends, Emily, and she came over and found you and realized something was wrong. And so then Emily came out and got me in the middle of the meeting that we were in. I was in with Britton and James, and I'll never forget it. She walked in the lobby, and I could tell she was concerned. And she was like, John, you need to come here. Something's wrong with Halcie. And so I walked into where you were in the sanctuary in the sound booth, and I don't know how I could tell. I mean, you just were acting different, to where like, it was almost like you were drunk. You were acting like you were drunk or something, and kind of not talking about yourself, not talking like you normally talk. And I was like, hey, Halcie, what's up? You're like, I'm fine. And you kept just talking like that. I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. And it was like, it was so different that I was like, oh my gosh, something is wrong. And I just inherently knew, like, I need to take you to the emergency room. So I took you, loaded you up in my car. We drove over to the emergency room. You were talking out of it, and I was afraid you were going to pass out or have a stroke or something. So I'm trying to keep you awake and talk to you. And it was hard because you were fighting me. You kept saying, I don't want to go. I don't need to go. And that's not like you at all. You're the sweetest, nicest, most like, okay, whatever you say, like you trust people. And like, you were just like almost fighting with me. And I was like, this is really weird. This is not like her. And I had no idea what was going on. And one of the ironic parts was the ER that's closest to the church and where we live is the one you used to work at.
Yeah.
So I pull you in to the ER that you worked at for 2 years. And not only just you worked there, but in the ER. We're going to the ER. You used to work in this ER. We roll in, classic, like I walk and there's people sitting there, but I walk you right to the front desk and I'm like, something's really wrong with my wife. Like, I don't know what's going on. She's acting weird, acting out of it. And thankfully they could tell by how you were acting, something was off. So they rushed you in there. And right when we got in there was a couple of people that knew you. You didn't know them because you were out of it. Maybe you remember. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of halfway there, halfway not. And you're just kind of saying random stuff. And they're like, oh, hey, Halcie, but obviously something's wrong. And they take you back to get a CT scan to see what's going on. And it was like just out of the movies. I was in this like small little side room waiting, and they walked in, just like out of the movies, where they're like pulling in the rolling monitor, and the lady's looking at me concerned, and she's like, we found something. We found a mass, a tumor on her brain. And you're actually laying in the room after the scan with me, but you're still kind of out of it. And so I'm the only one getting this information. and they show it on the screen, this like mass on your brain, and everything changed. All of a sudden it was like, oh, this is really intense. And so, so then we're trying to figure out what to do. And they're basically telling us they can't treat you there because they don't have enough equipment. This is just a random Memorial Hermann. You need to go downtown. And so they're going to take you on this ambulance. And I don't know if I've ever even told you this part. They're going to take you down on this ambulance. And I'm like, I can't leave her side. I've got to be with you the whole time. I have to be with her. But they're telling me that I can't come with you because no one's allowed to be in the ambulance. It's like against policy rules. Like there's no way they're going to let it happen. And once again, I mean, just like in the movies, I'm standing in this like emergency room lobby talking to this like emergency room driver tech guy. He's like probably like a 50 something, really big dude, like almost like a dude, like in like a New York, I don't know, like movie or something, just classic character. And he's like, you can't go. And I look at him with tears in my eyes and I'm like, sir, I have to go with her. I have to go with her, And he let me.
Oh,
like they broke the policy, and he was like, okay, just don't say anything, just hop in. And they let me go with you. And so then we get in this ambulance to go downtown. And that was when you first started waking up. Do you remember that at all?
I remember being in the hospital a little bit on and off, but yes, I do remember.
Well, I think they told you had a tumor.
I remember that. And I remember getting in the, I felt better once we got in the car thing.
And so then we're going down there. I think you're slowly waking up to what's happened. You're way more calm and collected than I am.
Oh, it's fine.
But I'm also trying to figure out what to do because I'm like, because I'm texting some people I know and they're like, if it's a tumor or something, you need to get her to MD Anderson, but they wouldn't let us go to MD Anderson because they can't take us there. They're trying to keep us in their hospital system, which I understand. But so we go down there, and I think the hard part was we're going down there, and well, first of all, we get there and they basically dump you off in this hallway.
I remember that for a long time. And I was a nurse in an ER, so I get it. But I think because
you were more stable at that point.
I'm stable. And so in an ER, I'm not a big deal at that point. And so I was just like waiting for a long time. But this was just like another way. One of my friends he's an ER nurse, total God thing. He was walking down the hall. I was just like sitting in the hall, and he's like, Halcie?
Is this the guy that I
used to work with him at the Memorial Hermann. Yeah. So
you worked at both Memorial Hermanns you went to?
Yeah, no, I never worked he worked at both.
Oh, so he was at a different
He was just at a different one. He was done with his shift and he saw me. He's like, Halcie? I'm like, what are you doing? And so he's like, let's go. And so if it hadn't been for him, I would have been hours longer.
So what's crazy is a nurse, is a nurse guy?
A nurse guy.
Who you used to work with at a different hospital.
Yes. Just
so happens to be working at this hospital now. And just so happened to be there the day you're there, and just so happened to be walking down the random hallway where they basically just stuffed you in.
Yeah.
Walking by, and just happens to see you and recognize you. And he realizes that you're in there. And so he, I guess, pulls some strings and gets you in.
Yeah.
I think they go do another scan. I'm waiting in the room. And that's the first time when they're doing the other scan, now that we're downtown at Memorial Hermann. This is when I start looking up brain cancer and brain tumors and what it can be. And I'm new to this. I've never done any of this before. I don't know anything about this. And I'm learning there's different kinds. And depending on the different kind, it's a very different situation and scenario. And as I'm looking at it, I'm learning all this. I'm like, well, the good news is it's not likely to be glioblastoma. And hopefully it's not that one, because that's the one you don't want to have, And I'm looking it up. And then the doctors or nurses start coming in and they start telling us that, like, based upon your age and your situation and how you're presenting and all that kind of stuff, it's likely not glioblastoma. It's likely either benign or it's a different kind of lower grade tumor that's a little bit more operable and whatever. That's what they're telling us, And so we're thankful to hear that. Mm-hmm. And then, but anyway, so then we get released from there. We met with the surgeon there, and that dude just seemed intense. It seemed like he was just going to cut you open, and he was almost kind of too aggressive sounding. So anyway, we got out of there, and then we went straight to MD Anderson. A longtime friend of ours who also worked at MD Anderson came actually, and he was a very nice guy named John Gabi, picked us up, took us over to MD Anderson. We entered in the emergency room there so that you could get into the system. We got you admitted. And that was a long night too. We were there overnight, I believe, in this like small little ER. Eventually you got a room and we got a little bit more stable. We were in the hospital the whole next day, and they looked at your scans and they were going to come tell us kind of what it was or what they thought it was. And once again, we're thinking, okay, it's probably just a tumor we got to remove, benign or whatever. And we waited all day for them to come. They weren't coming to see us. And eventually at the end of the day, they came and saw us. And do you remember at MD Anderson when those doctors came in and told us what they thought it was?
Like the bad one.
Yeah. Do you remember that moment?
Kind of. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. Because I was caught off guard. I mean, I was kind of, you were trying to feel better. You were trying to, we had our daughters, that was the day after. You were trying to feel better. I was trying to manage the situation, get you the best care possible. Okay, what's the issue? How do we attack it? And when they came in and they basically told us, because this is MD Anderson, they have all the best technology. They're all the smartest people. That they can often tell what things are before they even officially know what they are. And I just remember when he told us, we think it's glioblastoma. We think it's probably a grade 3 or grade 4, which is grade 4. It's like stage 4. They call it grades. It's like the worst kind or whatever. And basically tells us some horrible news in this hospital. Not only did our lives change a day or two ago, we found out you had a tumor, but now it's this worst kind. And they left the room and we just cried in the room. I was on the bed with you. We just cried and, hugged and kissed and cried and, tried to process it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was probably like, out of all of it, probably that was like the sad, dark kind of like just really sad in it. That was probably the hardest one.
Yeah, I remember that. And so then the next day we got released. It was our kids. They had like a Christmas play recital thing.
So cute.
And we got rushed there so we could make it. And they actually held it
back for it for a long time.
But right before we did that, we met Dr. Kim.
I love Dr. Kim.
Who's become our surgeon and also a good friend of ours. And I just remember whenever we met her for the first time, this is a God thing. Like, I know I keep referencing a movie because it feels like a movie, but it's like, when you're watching a movie and like a new person walks into the scene.
Yes.
And you can just tell by the way they walk and the music and just kind of, this is an important person. This is a main character.
She's such a kind, sweet spirit.
I felt that about her. Like I could just tell this person.
Made me feel like all is fun.
She's stepping into this.
So much better.
We need it was just, and she was actually trying to get us out of, she knew we were trying to, she has kids of her own. She was trying to get us out because she knew we were trying to watch our kids play or whatever. And so she's like, tell the nurse, just let him go. Like, just need to be all this stuff. Like, I know it's policy, just let him go, This is like our surgeon,
Yeah, I love
her. Anyway, so then we did that. And I know obviously this is probably taking a long time, but we, so then begins a couple days of like, okay, and then that night, so we went to the play and then we FaceTimed with her, Dr. Kim, later that night.
Yes.
And got more bad news. Do you remember what that bad news was?
I don't remember.
Well,
I'm sure it's bad.
Yeah. So basically, not only is it their brain tumor, not only is it probably the worst kind of brain tumor, we're like, well, let's just take it out. But then we go and meet with her and she says, I can probably only get about 50 or 60% of it because half of it is in what's called an eloquent part of the brain. An eloquent part of the brain is basically a part of the brain where a very key or important function like speech or moving or something is kind of directed. So you don't want to mess with that because you could paralyze somebody or they can't talk or they can't walk. So now it's like worst case scenario, cancer, considered terminal. She can only get about half of it. So half of it's going to stay in there. And so more bad news. And I just remember the day after that, waking up, that was one of the most emotional low points for me. Like, I just felt like, how are we going to do this? Like, how is this going to work? I wish I could have told you I was like falling straight to my knees in prayer and this like amazing, but I just wasn't, I think we had been in the hospital. When you're in the hospital, it kind of shapes your thinking and warps you a little bit. It kind of gets you in that world. And it was just hard. But then the next couple of days, it was a bunch of appointments. We were going to schedule our surgery for 3 days from then. And so, we had the surgery planned. And so we had a bunch of appointments, do all kinds of scans to get you ready.
Tons and
we had
tons.
an epic prayer night at our church. That's when we started to kind of regain composure. Hey, we're going to seek the Lord in this.
On your birthday.
Yeah, on my 33rd birthday, we had a prayer night for my wife's, grade 4 terminal brain cancer. It's just insane. I mean, insane, this whole thing. And we did that. It was an awesome night.
Did the music and the song.
Britton did the music.
He has a song.
James and the team did a great job. Britton wrote a spontaneous song. That was pretty.
Yeah, that was very special.
But a lot of people came out. Great time. A lot of people came to church who had never been to church. Honestly, I remember that. It's a really special time. But it was kind of a big, like, it was a thing. Word was spreading and people were sharing it. Probably 2,000 text messages. I mean, every person I've ever known in my life reached out to me, and it took me weeks to catch up on that. I mean, I was getting emails, Instagram,
I was chilling.
messages.
I was chilling.
No one. I'm getting it from everybody though.
I'm just chilling.
So then we get ready for that, and that's where the next crazy thing happens, where it comes time for the surgery. So we do an awesome prayer night. We're full of faith. You're on a spiritual high. You're feeling great.
Yes. So I can tell you so I think it was like a day or two after the diagnosis. And then after that, it was just so much peace and in a very unique, beautiful way where I was totally fine. Like I knew God is with me. He was holding me. I was not afraid. I was fine. I knew it was going to be that. I wasn't afraid of that. I knew before the doctors said that you're going to be stage 4. I knew. And I feel like God told me and I was fine. I truly felt so much peace in it. And where I would just get up and just want to be with Jesus and just talk to him and just pray. And I felt he was just holding me so close. And that's where I feel total peace in it all in a very unique way that I maybe got little glimpses of throughout my life, like for a couple, a second at a big, as a high schooler but no, this was just so God just truly closely in a genuinely kind way where it was totally, I was fine. I was great. I was fine in it.
So I could tell you were in this incredible spiritual place.
God.
That made me feel really good.
Peace,
I had a couple moments where God's peace, fell over me. I remember I was standing up in Peter's room. Because you have to remember, after all this happened,
15 months.
We come back to our kids. We've been with them for 5 days.
Oh, I miss them so much.
Peter was 15 months old and still breastfeeding, but this weaned him. That's
what weaned him.
But God's peace was with us. I remember telling the kids what was going on, and they were kind of young at the time. Molly was 5 and she was the oldest. They were like 5, 3, and 1. And so, we had to have that hard conversation with the kids and kind of talk about what's going on. And then the day before the surgery, I think it was scheduled for December 21st. So on the 20th, we were at MD Anderson all day doing a bunch of tests, getting ready and pumped up and feeling good. And came home that night. I kind of started to feel like I maybe had a cold or something, but I was just kind of pushing through. And then that night at 10 o'clock, we were supposed to get up on December 21st, 2021 at 4 a.m. to go to the hospital because we had a 5-in check-in time for the surgery. And so it was 10 o'clock the night before. So 6 hours before we're supposed to get up, I'm still awake doing stuff. I get a call at 10 o'clock from the hospital saying Halcie's surgery has been postponed because she tested positive for COVID.
Yeah.
And then the whirlwind went even next level because number one, we've never had COVID this whole time.
I never.
We got through all not having COVID. But looking back on it, your surgery and your diagnosis actually coincided with the peak of COVID in America. That December 21, January 22 was like the highest COVID in America. But we didn't realize that at the time, And so then you have COVID, then they call me and tell me that. Then I'm like, actually, I don't feel good as well. And so then that night I go to bed, I start feeling really bad because I now have COVID. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, I have COVID.
So now we're separate.
So now we're isolated from each other. And the next morning, we all get up to go get tested because you have COVID. So we're going to see that other people have COVID. And so it's a cold winter day. I just found out my wife has brain cancer, terminal brain cancer. We're all going to get tested for COVID. We've got masks on our faces. We've got like our 15-month-old who's got a mask on his face, our 3-year-old, our 5-year-old. My mom came with us. We're outside over here, outside of like Harbor Freight, where the Black Eyed Pea used to be, at like a standalone COVID testing center. Cold outside, you have brain cancer, getting tested for COVID. I'm feeling sick. It felt like hell. It felt like hell on earth. Like how can my life be this depressing, this bad? And then I got tested positive for COVID. You tested positive. Molly tested positive. No one else did, thankfully. So then because you're immunocompromised because you have brain cancer, we have to be isolated for 10 days.
Yeah.
And so you are isolated in your room for 10 days. I'm isolated in a room by myself for 10 days by myself with the knowledge my wife has brain cancer and the surgery has been postponed for 21 days and Lord knows what's happening with the tumor. And, so 10 days, I'm the sickest I've ever been to. I got hit really hard. You weren't very sick.
I felt fine.
I've never been more sick in my life. I've never been more sick in my time. I was so sick for 10 days. It was awful. I lost like 10 pounds. It was horrible. And it was over Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've brought that up.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's over Christmas.
It was December 21st through December. So it was over Christmas. I don't know if it's a God thing, but it's a God thing, but I don't know if I'd say it's good. 2 days before Christmas, we got hit up by Fox 26 News.
Oh, yeah.
They wanted to do a story about you. They heard about it. Our local newspaper, The Leader, was writing articles about it, which was kind of weird. I remember seeing them post a story about you that I didn't even know was coming. And I was like, oh, this is kind of what a celebrity feels like. They're saying news about themselves and they have no idea this, and they're like posting updates and it's like kind of true, kind of, I don't know, and getting quotes from like people. It was just crazy, but Fox News reached out and that definitely was a God thing because they interviewed us and it was the leading story on Christmas Eve of 2021. Pastor's wife gets terminal brain cancer diagnosis. We got interviewed over Zoom because it was COVID and we had COVID. And you quoted Bible verses and they put them on the screen.
Philippians.
They showed pictures of our prayer night, of our sanctuary, of people worshiping. I've never seen something that spiritual on a secular news publication ever. I've never, not just because of us, I've never seen that. It was awesome. Huge testimony. So people actually reached out about it because they saw it. So then we got through that. We healed up from COVID and then came time to brain surgery.
January
12th, 2022. And so talk about what brain surgery was like.
It was fine.
An awake brain surgery.
No, so it's like they said that they didn't have to, but they asked if I would do it. And I think that's very interesting, just the nurse background. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Let me experience that. So I was down for it. And I remember that was like 15 seconds, maybe. I don't know. I hope I was sharing the gospel with them. That's what I was hoping I did, but I don't know. I just remember, I remember that and it was cool. The second one was different, but it was fine. I just woke up. I think I remember about 15 seconds and it was good. The surgery was fine. It really did not hurt a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah. So you, it was COVID.
It was COVID. Yeah. That was a thing.
So I had to wait in the waiting room by myself the whole time.
For 12 hours, right?
12 hours.
Because she was only going to do like 8 hours and then it moved up to 12 hours. But I'm asleep, so it's fine.
Yeah. And so then, and once again, I wish I could have said that I was just like on my knees in prayer and doing a bunch of stuff. I couldn't, I just paced almost the whole time. I ate food, paced, vegged out my phone, kept everybody updated. It was hard and nobody could come be with me because it was like COVID and I couldn't leave because if I left, I couldn't get back in.
Yeah.
So I was, we were both stuck in this place for 5 days, couldn't walk outside once. And, but then the good news was the surgery went very well.
Really well.
Our surgeon got more than she thought she was going to be able to get. She got about 70 or 80% of it. And that's the first really good piece of news. The second is that you had no deficits. And so that's what they talk about with brain cancer or certain kinds of surgeries is like deficits, meaning that like in order to remove this thing, we had to do a surgery, and maybe to save a life, we messed some things up in the way.
Yeah, I was like, Lord, that was like, Lord, I really would like to not like be paralyzed. I remember like that was a real thing for me. And she said it was like 10%, 1%. I don't remember what percentage that was.
It was like a 1% chance.
But I'm like, but with my babies, and I'm a
1% chance is pretty high. And like,
and
paralyzed,
like a runner like that used to be like one of my favorite things. Is I'm just like, Lord, I really want to be able to not be paralyzed. That was my. So
you came out of it well, thankfully.
Yeah, it's great.
And then we were in the hospital for 4 or 5 days, and those were hard days. I remember I just felt so I was worried about you. I was like uncomfortable. I was sleeping in this chair.
Yeah.
I slept in an uncomfortable hospital chair so many times in that process.
But even then, there would be people who love the Lord, like someone who would just come and talk to me about Jesus, this lady from India who loves the Lord. And she would just remember that we have all these nerds. There's so many people.
There's way more Christians in healthcare.
So many more who are so genuinely just great people and reminding me of the truth. So yes, I don't really remember too much, maybe a couple times.
Well, we got released, and then talk about the recovery, because I know we went.
Oh yeah,
that was hard. That was really hard.
Well, yeah. So they give me, I'm almost done with it, but what's it called? Steroids. The steroids. Ugh. Those are, so they
decrease swelling in the brain.
Decrease swelling, which is good. I'm very thankful for that, but it makes you feel kind of weird. That's how I felt, like, just like, I can't, like, I would wake up at 2 a.m. I'm like, well, good morning. Like, you just can't, I was awake. So in some ways that's really nice, because what I did was I would just get up, can't sleep, get some coffee, and then just spend time with the Lord. And it's truly just, that's my favorite right now. It's my favorite time when I get up and I'm just with the Lord, and I would just be quiet. He would be talking to me. I would be praying. He would be listening. I'm a big journaler, and I've gotten into a lot of art, color, like just, and so we've had so much time with that it's really, that's the blessing of it. I also heard that I was acting kind of weird. Like, was a little bit more
OCD than normal.
And I was also scared of getting sick, because, that was it. They had said that if this gets infected, that I'd have to go back to the hospital. And I was just like, I really don't want to go to the hospital. So I was being like a little extra probably on not getting infected. I had the surgeon thing, which, yeah. So I think I was a little bit scared of that. And, yes. So
that was a hard season, because you're recovering from, this is a major surgery. It's not just like a normal, it's like, it takes, sometimes months to recover and be normal again.
Yeah.
You have this whole incision on your head, which maybe later we'll show.
Yeah. The first one was a lot bigger or different than this one.
When they shaved half your head.
They shaved it
spoiler alert, she recently had a second surgery, and they did not shave off half her head, which is nice.
But it was like half of my head was just like shaved, which was an interesting experience.
Hard for a girl, especially.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite. And my hair was weird. it was
also, because then you recover or you heal up and then immediately start radiation. How was radiation? Like, this is brain radiation now. So basically what happens is the surgery removes as much of the tumor as they can safely. Maximal safe resection is the word. I've learned all the terminology in this process.
And I, by the way, I've still to this day Googled it 0 times.
Which I highly recommend.
Zero Googles.
Don't Google it.
Nothing. I don't want to know.
But then she started radiation, which is radiation on the brain. Radiation's attacking the remaining tumor. So talk about that was intense. That was hard for you.
So I actually, for the beginning, so it was 5 days a week for 6 weeks, and it was only 10 minutes, and I just laid there, and it physically, it doesn't hurt. I just laid there. I got to know some people there that I hope they come to know the Lord. The people I was like friends with the people who worked there. They let me listen to Jesus music, John's music, New Day music. So it was really, that part was fine. It was 10 minutes. It was getting there. I got to hang out with friends who would take me. So that was nice. Just time to go. I knew how to get there. But I think it was around 4.5 weeks where I started to like really not feel good. I think part of it is that the school they were getting to do, was that it? I can't remember, but I think was it during that I ended up going back to the hospital because I was just like in bed. I think
we had to go back. Your brain swelled because of all the treatment, and thankfully you were okay. But yeah, that was
that was a night when I thought I might be dying.
Yeah,
in that, which was again, I'm not trying to be like all fussy about it, but I remember we were at MD Anderson in the ER, and I remember like thinking I might die, and there was a lot of peace. I'm like, God is good. I can trust Him. Don't need to be afraid. And so it was almost like God gave me a little, because we all are going to face that. And it was really good for me to be like, okay, God is, even if the worst happens here tonight and I'm going to feel real bad, God is close and He's good and He's kind. So in a way that was like, it was pretty raw. And yes. So it was a weird experience.
That was really hard. And then you were also doing chemo at the same time. And
I started after?
Well, no, you started, they did it.
Oh yeah, they did it. They did it.
Chemo and radiation.
Yes.
And that wiped you out. You weren't able to do much. You were in bed for
And they had to reduce it, which made me very angry because all of my blood.
Well, they had to stop the chemo.
Oh yeah.
They do chemo radiation together because it's so intense. They're trying to attack it and give you all the help you can get. But then they took you off the chemo, just did the radiation. Then they finished the radiation. They put you back on chemo because that's the thing that you do: surgery, radiation, and chemo. And then you do just chemo for a year. So then they did chemo for a year, and you're already pretty weak at this point. And chemo just really over time started taking it out of you. It thinned your hair out. I remember you didn't lose your hair, but it thinned it out. And I remember your face was swelling and you were noticing that and didn't like that.
Yeah.
Girl. That 2022 was a year of treatment, and it was intense, and it was a year of like hanging on.
And it gives you weird side effects where it's like, I forget what it is now, because I'm the kind of person that I try to not remember. But was it like I got really, really itchy or really, really hurt? I don't remember, but it was like so uncomfortable and I just couldn't handle it. Yeah. But I mean, the cool thing about it is it was just pills. So I just took it at night. So that was nice.
Yeah, the radiation was 5 days a week at the hospital for 6 weeks. And it's a kind of a, I mean, we're thankful to live in Houston with MD Anderson, but we're driving there every day, going there. This is cool because it's like a pill you take 5 days a week and then you're off for 23 days or something like that.
But your mom helped me a lot because they had to reduce it, which made me, again, I was not very happy about. I'm like, give it all. Let's
because your platelet numbers basically
going down.
It's like a toxic drug that's killing the cancer, but it can also hurt your healthy parts of you.
Right.
And so her numbers were getting so bad where she was getting unhealthy. They had to pull back because like the chemo can take you out too.
I was like eating beef liver.
So then you're eating all these weird things to get your numbers up. And now we're like, we need our platelet. We're praying for platelet
numbers to go up.
Gosh, I remember that. Yeah.
But I'm fine. If, what was it? Liver, chicken liver?
Yeah.
Beef liver? That's a good
one. So I'm going to fast forward us a little bit. So we get through that. And the good news is one thing we haven't noted is this whole time you're getting good scans.
Yes, that is
true. So from the beginning, we got a bad scan, which I found out about all this, but then like the surgery's good. Every scan is good. Every time we go in, it's like, oh, it's either stable or it's gotten better. It's shrunk. You can't even really see the tumor remaining anymore. No new tumor is growing. I mean, every single scan is good. The 2022, the treatment, it kind of wears you out in every way. You're also adjusting to your new normal. Like you can't do a lot of things you used to do. Yeah. And so real quick, before we talk about 23, talk about what are the deficits you have now? Like what are the things like, there's 3 things I'm thinking of. What are the 3 things that like, cause you look so normal. What's not normal?
So one of them is just the vision. It's kind of like on this side, I can't see.
So show with your hand, like when.
So like I can see over here, but if I can't see, and now I can see, but all of this I can't see.
So you kind of lost half your vision.
I mean, yeah. The cool thing though, my mom, just as a side note, my mom was a blind teacher. She taught, so she, Yeah. So that's always been like meaningful. My mom that was like what she did as her job. So anyway, but yes.
So we're coming out of this realizing you've kind of lost half your vision.
Half my vision.
Some things.
But I'm used to it now.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of fine with it.
Also, I need chronic fatigue.
Yes.
You are tired all the time.
Unless I get the steroid.
Like a different kind of tired.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been tired.
I get tired.
I've had 3 kids, so I know what it's like to be tired. But this is like just like I can't. I can't. I mean, no. When you have a baby, you're pretty tired. It's probably like that. It's probably just really tired. Yes. And so very tired a lot. And some days it would be better than others. Especially some days would be like I love church and I love people, but if I'm around people or on Sunday mornings, I would just be totally out of it afterwards. Like I get home and there's like some sort of, I don't know what it is, but I'd be fine in front of people. And then as soon as I like got in the car, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so hard. And I wouldn't feel great. So,
and then trouble with certain words.
With certain words. Yes. But I feel like it's getting better actually after, I don't know. I hope it does. But
what's that word? What's that word?
What's that thing?
You swim in it. Pool. You sit in it. Chair. Like
yes, it's annoying. Because, or it'll be someone's name where I know them. I've known them for 10 years and it's like, it's in my brain, but it won't, I don't know what it is. So those are probably the big ones that it would be. So, and I'm trying to tell a story or talk to someone and I'm like, yeah. And a lot of times what I do is I'll kind of get around it and not say it. Hopefully you can't tell. And I'll switch the words but there were times when I'm like, never mind. Because I couldn't come up with anything else. So it was annoying. But yeah, but that's rare. That's more.
Everybody understands.
Oh my.
Yeah, everyone gets it.
I know you. I've known. Yeah. So anyway, I remembered your name.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy is, like you are like the nicest person. So I think everyone has always given you a lot of grace, but those are very real things. And people don't realize that when they look at you, that like those are like, you live with those things. Thankfully, we discovered Ritalin.
Yes, that's such a gift, such a blessing.
What she has, Ritalin gives her energy. So if she takes Ritalin, she's got like a 3-hour window where she can be very normal energy wise. Other than that, she's very tired. So I think a good thing to note about that in that season was our life began to really adjust a lot. And
yes.
I had to learn that the hard way. I was trying to kind of do everything normal and still be as involved in everything I've always done. And, I'm like, I don't want to get in details. I was doing more than I should have done. I was trying to be a normal person and the person we'd always been and, trying to make a bunch of stuff happen and do a lot of things. And I just began to realize our life doesn't fit like that anymore. Like we have to slow down and do less things and be a lot more thoughtful. Like when we plan a trip, I have to do a lot of planning, preparation and thinking through it. And, our rhythms with the kids and things. And, I'm doing a little bit more things in the house now and managing this. And
he does a lot. It's a lot, Yes. And he's a great dad. Like, so this is just like I'm not saying anything about other dads, but he's really invested in our kids and really loves them and gives them so much time and energy. And just, he really has given so much of his life to our kids and helps them. Like we have our devotions and he has just fun time he's like so engaged with them. So
yeah, that's the positive note. And this is, I love my kids. So any chance they get more is good, but yeah, doing a lot, managing a lot. So then so we go through the treatment, you finish chemo in March of 23.
Yep.
And we had a lot of friends come out. Oh no, it was radiation. We had a lot of friends come out support you. That was special.
Yeah, that was
but also friends came over to our house and surprised you when you finished chemo. I had people come over and celebrate.
That was so sweet.
So 23 was a year of healing and recovery. Not back to normal. I've learned that's not our situation.
Yeah.
But we're like slowly getting stronger and every scan continues to be good. We're also like adjusting to our new life. I kept the wrong word I was using early on was overcome.
Yeah.
Overcoming things. And there are some things you can overcome. There are some things that you have to adjust to. And sometimes the faith move is to adjust and not even overcome, because adjusting is your way of saying, okay, God, I see what you're doing. I see what you are allowing to happen. And I'm not going to keep here. Like, I'll be persistent in asking for healing or for what we're wanting. But if you keep things the same way, I'm not going to just keep here, like not living in the reality of what you've given me. And so we began to adjust. I feel like it was a good year. Now, really quick for me, in a weird way though, May of 2023, I burned out.
Yeah.
In a way I've never burned out before. And it was scary. It was that was the hardest month of my life.
And you couldn't move your arm?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that was going on. But I think looking back on it, what it was I remember, I mean, I've dealt with anxiety in the past, and I've had panic attacks. And I just remember thinking multiple times, like, walking through this for 18 months, I was shocked at how I was not that anxious. I was like, I feel a lot is going on. I feel a lot of stress, but like, I don't feel anxious about this. I'm like kind of surprised. Hey, I've dealt with anxiety. Like, why am I just doing so okay? You know? And then May, it all hit me, and I had all these weird bodily, like, I got frozen shoulder was what it was. I didn't know what it was at the time. I couldn't move my shoulder. We still don't know why it happened. I can't really move my shoulder all that well. I've been rehabbing it. It's getting better, but I literally for a while couldn't lift my hand in worship. I couldn't do that because my shoulder was just like, it wouldn't let me do it. I was like, it hurt so much and it was so tight. And then I started having all these like physical symptoms, like pain in my legs, pain in my arms, cramping in my legs. Like my legs were constantly cramping. I didn't know why. And I just had all these bodily pains. I felt depressed. I mean, it just like, I fell into a pit in the month of May of 2023. And I thought I was dying or something was happening to me. I'm going to all these doctor's appointments, and looking back on it, it was like all the stress and anxiety was hitting me, and I'd kind of spiraled a little bit. In a weird way, once you got a little more stable, then I fell apart, you know, because I've been holding it all together for so long, you know.
A lot, yeah.
And, you know, but the cool thing about that is every time I go through a season like that, like God just does a great work in my life. That's when I really learned we have to adjust and live into our calling. I also, the first time in my life, got on a medication for anxiety and depression. And man, thank God for Cymbalta. It was awesome. You know, I'm not ashamed at all. That stuff was so helpful. And I took it the first day. I was like, I feel a lot better, you know. But it wasn't a long-term solution. What it did was it dulled the pain. And those medicines, they don't fix it. They dull the pain. And if someone needs to be on medication for a long time and that helps them and they're prayerful about it and they're under a doctor's supervision, like, man, you should do that. Like no shame. That's an awesome thing to do. Anything that helps you. God wants good for us in that. But for me, I was only on it for about 3 or 4 months and I weaned off of it. I kind of weaned off of it quicker than my doctor wanted me to, but I was like, I think I'm good, you know. I weaned off of it. I was fine after that. I haven't needed it since. But it just shows me how intense that was. Yeah, and so then, but once again, the rest of 23, that was the middle of 23, the summer of 23 and the fall, we healed up a lot, made a lot of positive strides. Got a really new good rhythm going for our family, really adjusted. The first half of 24, we're getting up to modern day. The first half of 2024 was the peak for us, at least in this. Yeah. We were almost like feeling kind of normal and good. And I mean, I made goals for 2024. I'm usually like a lot of people, I make goals and like, I don't do them, you know?
But he did them.
I was like crushing my goals.
He was doing his goal.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, I was so focused after all this. Cause once you go through what we've gone through, like it motivates you to like, man, live to the fullest, like what you have. If your body feels good and you can do stuff, you should be doing stuff. Yeah. That's not a guarantee. And when you like our life was in chaos for so long and still kind of was in chaos. So like when there was any kind of normalcy, it's like, man, we're running, we're doing
We're gonna go
like,
do something fun.
Making things happen. We're excited. We're, you know, with the kids and the church and ourselves, we're doing all these things. And so 2024 was really good. Before we get to modern day, just explain where you were a month ago, like how you were feeling. You recently had a recurrence with your cancer, but explain like, you know, what it was like 2024 before all this happened. Where were you at in your journey with all this?
I think I felt a little weird.
No, before you started feeling weird.
Before I started feeling weird?
Peak of this.
Oh, that's great. I was like,
yeah. You feel back to normal-ish?
Kind of ish. And just really enjoying you and the kids and the church, like people hanging out, get coffee with people, like talking to people, and then not part of it too was like, okay, I want to help people who have been through, I know who have cancer and moms who have cancer. That's hard. And I wanted to be there for people. And I just wanted to kind of not be thinking about, so it was good.
So, but then, about a month ago or a month or two, about 2.5 years after. So 2.5 years of like horrible diagnosis, but treatment, healing up, feeling good. But then what did you start feeling about a month ago that made you move your scan up a little bit?
So it was Mother's Day. And
that was first.
Yeah, it was I think that was it. We were in the car after church, and I get tired. Like Mother's Day is like, it's a lot. Anyway, whatever. So anyway, because there's a lot of people, and I just remember we got in the car to go get something, and I couldn't remember the alphabet. Like I couldn't think of it. And that's weird. Again, like I know the alphabet, but I just and it was weird. It was about 5 minutes where I'm like, wait, what is it? And I'm like other words are from other languages, but I couldn't remember it. And it was kind of freaking me out. And I didn't want to be like in fear of that, but I'm like, this feels really weird. And then after about 5 minutes, 5 minutes, it went back and I was fine. And we celebrated Mother's Day and it was fine.
Really flustered by that.
I was flustered. That. I didn't it felt really weird. Like if I know the alphabet, like I did learn it.
Well, this goes back to like brain cancer stuff and these symptoms, especially for someone so you're experiencing something that you don't understand and you're explaining it to me and I really don't understand.
Yeah.
I'm trying to care for you, but I just remember thinking, why is she so flustered by this? Because there have been if you have a really bad headache or a seizure and things like that, okay, those are things that we're looking for.
It's like part of your brain that you normally use. It just goes away and you just.
But you were flustered by that. And so then you had some kind of mild headaches.
Yeah. I started having mild, which by nature, I've heard this, that with this brain cancer stuff, a lot of people had they would have, it would hurt their head. Me, never. Very rarely do I ever get any headaches ever. But then I'm like, it's like a 2 out of 10, but I feel something, which is not nor 2, 3, maybe. That one, yes, it just, something felt off and felt different.
And, like I said, she has not researched it much. I've researched it exhaustively and I kind of know what we're looking for. And she's telling me these symptoms and to me, they don't really sound like. And I'm always trying to keep you encouraged, because the problem with this is everything what if it's the brain cancer? What if it's a brain cancer for 2.5 years, And so I'm always like, okay, if it's major or really concerning, we're going to get looked at. But other than that, I'm going to encourage you and let you know that we're, believing for healing and all this kind of stuff and God's with you. And
I love it.
So I'm not trying to minimize, but I'm trying to keep you encouraged. And so you're kind of in a weird place as a caregiver, which I guess is what I'm considered to be now in this situation, is keeping you encouraged. But then eventually you mentioned it enough. And I said, hey, okay, you've mentioned it. Because sometimes you mention things and you just want me to tell you it's okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes you are wanting to let me know something to get my thoughts on it. And I'm trying to discern all that. And so it was about a month ago or whatever. And I was like, okay, or a few weeks ago. And I was like, hey, so if you were concerned and you want to get your scan moved up, you tell me, I'll make it happen, but what do you think? And you said, yeah, move it up. And that was a very assertive thing for you. You're not normally like that.
I am.
So the first thing I did was I reached out to the doctor. I said, hey, listen, she's had some symptoms. She'd like to maybe move her scan up. So they moved the scan up 3 weeks. We had, for the first part of this, every 2 months you got scans.
Yeah.
You had done so well. They moved it to every 3 months, which is huge.
Yeah.
With what you're dealing with, right? When they're extending out scans even farther, that's the best thing you could have happen when you're a cancer patient. So anyway, but we moved this one up, but I don't want to overstate it. We moved it up, but I think we both felt like it was okay. We both thought we're moving it up just out of precaution, but I'm sure she's okay. I mean, she was doing better and more on top of it than ever before. No symptoms of oh, there's a big issue or anything like that.
Yeah.
We went in there a week ago or so, week and a half ago on
Friday.
Last Tuesday. And we've gotten so used to good scans that I'm trying to get back to work because it's so normal now. This is a normal thing. We do this all the time. For 2.5 years, it's been good. But we're in there and the doctor tells us there's been a recurrence.
Yeah.
What was that like for you, really?
in a weird way, I felt kind of different. So I wasn't I wasn't shocked by that. It was more like, okay, kind of. I don't know.
You seemed kind of nervous when they were telling you. I was in there with you.
I mean,
be real.
No, I mean, yes. What does that mean? But it's also for me, it's one of those things like you say it, but I hadn't processed
that's good.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just like, okay. Because it just seemed like it had been so fine for so long. And then they said and then I'm like, what? Because I just got it 2 months ago and it was fine. And now we're here and it's not. So
I was so caught off guard. Like, it was like I'm in there, I'm like sitting up straight, like, I think both of us in a weird way, like, I think what's good about this, and I think the reason why I wanted to also, just before we kind of dive into a few more things, like I wanted to talk about the second reoccurrence, is because as hard as it was, I feel like we've handled this one with so much more faith and resilience.
Yeah.
Like it was a startling thing because I was just so caught off guard. I just didn't think that was going to happen. I thought like we're going to be the long road to like, you're going to be the person who's been 15 years out, never had a recurrence, and you're doing so well, and no one even can tell you how this. I thought we were on that road, Yeah. And I still think we are, and I hope and pray we are. Mm-hmm. But I just was so caught. I don't know how you can know you have this, but I was just so caught off guard, and I think you were too. And we're like, so what do we do now? And the crazy thing was they're like, and we're looking to do surgery in 2 days.
It was quick because before it was 2 weeks or whatever. Yeah. But I honestly was very thankful for that because I don't you don't want to think about it for 2 weeks. You just want to get it done.
It's probably also a good time to mention that our surgeon, who's Dr. Kim, she's a believer, become a good friend of ours, been a huge blessing, done 2 great surgeries now. Our oncologist, Dr. Weathers, is awesome. She's also a believer.
She loves.
She's been such an encouragement to us. I mean, talk about that we would end up with 2 believers.
I know.
Doing your care at this brilliant, best cancer hospital in the world place,
Can give you the worst diagnosis. And she's like, but God is so here.
She reminded me of you.
I love you so much. So she's the sweetest.
Blessing. But anyway, so then they're telling us you're going back to surgery. And that's where I feel like our life kind of flipped upside down again. And that was a week ago. So we were going to do this podcast, but I'm actually kind of glad we waited because it would have been outdated so quickly.
Outdated quick.
So then, okay, we're going back into surgery. But now we're in recurrence world. It's coming back. And so I know for you, that's been how are you processing that spiritually?
So kind of like you said, the first time it was all so crazy and weird and whatever. But I think the first time I've had moments of what is going on? I'm not trying to say that, but it's been very much more just peace in it. God's closeness got just so deep again quickly for me. Maybe only if there's anything negative 6 months ago is I wasn't maybe as close. And now I can come to him and talk to him. And yes, when I first found out, I'm like, God, please, what are you doing? Please, God, please. And I'm a crier. So I would just cry to the Lord and weep to the Lord and listen to the Lord. And so in all of it, he has just been he keeps telling me, trust me, do not be afraid. I'm with you. 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 Don't need to be afraid. So for me, spiritually, it's again, he's just like in the beginning of the last time, it's just been but God is holding me so close. And again, that's just his kindness that he gives to me. So,
but you were talking about how I thought I was healed, but now this is here. How are you processing that?
Well, I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't know. I do believe that so he did heal me and I can be healed. It is 0, nothing is hard for him at all. And I really do trust that. He can do it. It could never happen again. And I could be 90. Who knows? So God, he's really encouraged that and strengthened that in my spirit and in my faith is I know he can. It's not a problem for me. If he doesn't, and it's I get to go home earlier, he has also given me a lot of peace in that. I'm really it's in a weird, this is like a new, and the last week, whatever, of him just being like, yeah, it is okay, regardless. Before I felt more, he's going to heal me and I'm fine. And now I totally think he totally can. And I want him to. And I keep asking him to because I love you and I love my kids and I love the church. No place I would rather be. And I love it all. But he's kind of given me a new, like, I got you. You're with me. You don't need to be afraid. Don't be afraid that Isaiah 41:10, like, you're not, because I'm with you. I'm with you. And he keeps telling me that and keeps encouraging that to me. So I feel like I have a lot more peace regardless, still asking like, God, you totally can. Please heal me. I'm not. I really want you to, please, because I love my kids. But if I don't, it's cool too, because there's that, like, if we knew everything that God knows, we would want exactly what he's done. And that has become deep. I guess it's been deeper to me in my heart. Now it's even deeper than it used to be in that.
Well, yeah. And one thing for me in alignment with that is, I think in this, what I have found has brought me the greatest comfort is not the healing of God, though we pray for that and believe for that and are committed to continue pursuing that. It's the sovereignty of God. For me, that brings me the most comfort, that like God is over everything. God has ordained everything. Like that's the thing. And God has revealed his presence with us in so many ways. Like I know a few of the miracles that happened along the way. Like one was like, I remember about a year or two before you were diagnosed, I was like going through like reading through the Bible, and I was reading like a chapter a day or whatever. And I got stuck on Psalm 30. Yeah. And I just like God telling me to keep reading this every day. I stay with Psalm 30, stay with it. And it was like a month or two where I'd wake up every day and I'd just spend time in Psalm 30 specifically. And it talks about how like I've cried out and you've healed me, and sorrow may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. It's like God was preparing me in advance for this. And so that's been kind of our thing. And then you were diagnosed at the age of 30, you know? And so that was an interesting thing where one of those things that like God kind of gave that to us early on. There's been other things. I mean, our doctors being, believers and encouraging, like we've got to connect with our treatment on a spiritual level, not just like a medical level. Like that's really happened, We've also met, it's kind of funny. We were at a Christmas, like a massive Christmas play in a very large church with like thousands and thousands of people in attendance. And we just happened to be walking by on one of the like 6 or 7 days they were doing this performance. And I'm on the side hallway, we're about to leave, and I see this guy that I've seen before, and I realize I've seen him before because I've seen him on the news for having glioblastoma and living in Houston. And he's a young guy too. And I'm like, wait, do I know you? And I'm like, I realize I know you because I've seen you on TV before. I'm like, wait, you're the guy that has glioblastoma. That's how I've seen you. My wife has glioblastoma. She's here. Y'all should meet. And y'all got this picture together. And the chances of y'all's like paths crossing, I mean, once again, one in a million, a chance of that ever happening, and like encouraging each other. And I exchange numbers with him, and he texts me every morning now.
Such a kind,
encouraging thing in the Lord every morning. And he's fighting his journey as well. Also how you've been able to do so well. I think like the other challenge with this is not just that like, they say potentially, or, they say it can take your life, but like it can mess you up in a lot of ways, and you're very normal, and it really has impacted the big things.
I appreciate you saying.
And that like you're already a miracle story because almost no one does as well as you do with this. And she hasn't looked it up, but I've looked it up, and she's doing extremely well considering what she has. Like she shouldn't be doing this well. She's already outlived her prognosis.
Well,
just so you know, like you've outlived your prognosis by probably 2 times, and look at you,
Yeah.
And I think also for me, just like seeing God's fruit in our church and like still being able, like in a weird way, this is complicated being a pastor in some ways, but I don't feel like it's hindered my leadership in any way.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how that's possible. Like, I feel like God's just given me the strength I need to do this. And almost like God has kind of united it with my calling here. Like it's a part of it, like this is a part of our ministry, and part of our story is our ministry to some degree is to suffer publicly. And we have found that for people like you can do a bunch of cool things that are impressive, but like, you can say, oh, this church was dead, now it's alive and it's got more people and we've got 3 campuses and they've got like, yeah, cool, But then it's like you suffer publicly and you keep the faith and you keep running your race. And people are like, that has built my faith so much. And if I had a dime for every time someone has reached out to us, it's been 10,000 at this point. I mean, so many people at every part of the journey reaching out. It's been amazing. God has used it. God's going to use your pain more than whatever you think is good in your life. And we all want to do exciting things, but really it's your greatest pain that's going to be your greatest testimony.
Yeah.
Because everyone's struggling with their pain.
Yeah.
And that's everyone's biggest problem in their life is their pain. And so the only way you can minister to somebody is to give somebody hope that that their pain can be used for good. And so otherwise you're just distracting them with entertainment or something. And so I think that's been a big thing we've learned. And we see that with Paul in the New Testament of, the thorn is flesh that God doesn't remove. And it's like
weakness.
Yeah. God said, when you're weak, then you're strong,
which is very true.
Sufficient for you.
Yes.
And I think the last thing for me, it's just caused me to really in a good way, kind of question what I believe and deepen what I believe. Cause I need answers on a lot of things. Why are we where we're at? What's going on? It's grown my faith. It has strengthened my faith. It's helped me learn a lot more. A few more things really quick. Just kind of some closing questions. What is it like living with brain cancer or having a chronic illness? What is it? So many people wonder. I promise you, so many people are listening to this or watching this, or they always ask us questions. Almost every mom in the world wonders what it would be like and is afraid that she would get what you have. And have to walk through that. And so many people wonder what it's like. I mean, what is it like?
What is it like? I guess my story is different. But I remember being a mom of 3 little kids, and that was really hard. So for me, it's almost been easier than that. That's hard for moms, but it's been one of those things that really does humble you. In a way that it's like the fact that I can get up, the fact that I can walk, I'm thankful for that now in a way I didn't think about it as much before. So that makes it, I guess, slightly, it's good. It helps you to see things in the beautiful picture of the fact that I can hug my kids. For example, I think before it was kind of check the boxes and do all the things. And now I just really love to just sit with my kids in a beautiful way. So positives and negatives.
Does it frustrate you?
I'm sure it does sometimes. It does. Yes, it does. Sometimes, for example, I want to just be the mom who can just go take her kids to the park across town and get them ice cream and go do fun things, go to someone and I can't. I'm kind of limited in that. And that really, part of it for me, this whole thing has been God, I want what I want with my kids. And I don't like how I have to be very, a lot of people help me a lot, and I need them to help me.
You're thankful for, but no one wants to be thankful on other people.
But I want to be the one who can go do all of these fun things, and so that's part of in my own life how God has really been helping me with that, because I'm sad. I want to be the mom who is the fun mom at the school, the one who's doing all the fun things, and the mom who's totally there. And I want to be the mom who always takes them to the park and always takes them on fun trips and always wants to do all these things. So that has been somewhere where God has really been wrestling that from me, because what really matters in the end is that my kids know and love Jesus. And so that the one thing I can do is in the morning, we have our devotional and I pray I pray with my kids, and that might sometimes is all I can do. And that is it's sad, but at the same time, it really has made me focus on, I really want you to know how to spell stuff, but I really want you to know Jesus. And I really, really want you to love him. And so I pray for my kids and I hug my kids, and it's much more present. So that's a positive about it. But yes, it is not at all the kind of motherhood.
Is it sad? Is what you're dealing with sad?
I've been through sadness, and I'm sure I get that because I'm a girl. So women still get all that. But sometimes it is. Sometimes I get sad, but then sometimes God in his kindness has been but what's really important? And in 100 years, do you want your kids to, remember that you went to that park one day and got that ice cream cone? Or is it because your kids know me and love me and serve me and walk with me? So,
yeah. So I think for kind of my side, the caregiver side, which has been interesting, what I've learned early on was we're fighting two different battles.
Yeah, they are big ones.
I think yours is more of yours is like when you're going through a dynamic like this and one spouse gets really sick, you're fighting a physical battle, an intense physical battle. You're fighting an intense emotional battle.
Yeah.
Thinking about everything. You're also fighting an intense spiritual battle.
Yeah, I felt that for real.
And so it's a lot of kind of transcendent big questions for the person on my side of the situation, which is kind of crazy. I've always felt like sometimes I feel the weight and the hardship of this, and I always feel bad because I'm like, well, in a sense, you have it worse,
No, but I don't think so.
Well, but you have it worse. But I'm like second place in it,
No.
But no one thinks about.
But you do a lot.
Well, but no, that's what I'm saying. So for you, so for me, it's not physical. Like I don't have the physical issues of this. For me, it's like very practical, weighty responsibility.
It's a lot.
It's like
getting me downtown.
job.
Like you got to get me down.
So when you're when you're saying sometimes like, oh, it's kind of easier now, because it's like, well, people are picking up the kids. It's like, for me, it's like the medicine and the finances and the appointments and advocating for you and caring for you when you don't feel good. And, like things like they didn't used to be on my plate. Like I order the groceries, just things like that,
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like,
but it's hard for me to get on the computer.
Yeah. Well, when you can't really read.
I can read ish, kind of,
but not the way that normal humans are used to being able to we just take it for granted,
Yeah. Like computers. I on my phone because I don't like computers.
But for me, I think what I've wrestled with at times even with the Lord is sometimes God, this feels cruel, that's the word it feels cruel sometimes. It's like God is already really busy and 3 young kids, just a normal life would have been a lot. People are in counseling offices just because it's hard to live a life and work a job and raise 3 kids and have a healthy marriage and do all that, and I'm like, all that with this and the emotional side for me of your diagnosis and all the what ifs and all the things and the questions, the ups and the downs. And then the fact of the reward for it's we're treating you, but now it's the money aspect of it. And it's making dinner and all these kinds of things. And
I'm not a good chef by nature.
But it's crazy because it's not your fault. It's not I probably more often now make dinner after work, but it's not your fault. It's she can't help it. And so I'm like, well, whose fault is it? And so there are just moments where
I just really don't like to cook.
Maybe you're using
I just really don't like it.
That'd be a good question. What are you just using this for?
No.
What are you able to do?
No, the thing is, I don't really care. I just want food on the table. And you like good food.
I like a nice meal.
He likes a nice meal. I'm just check the box.
I'm if it's supposed to have sour cream, it needs sour cream, not yogurt, not Greek yogurt. That's not sour cream.
It's close enough. Okay.
But in those moments when I do that, to me, it has kind of acquainted me with the sufferings of Christ.
Yeah.
And a phrase that I feel like I've kind of had in my mind the whole time with all this is I didn't come to Jesus. I didn't come to Jesus for an easy life. So a hard life won't make me walk away from him because that's not why I came, and you look at Jesus, he was crucified and Paul was martyred and all the disciples were for the most part martyred, had hard lives. How do we read what happened to the people in the Bible and think that following Jesus is going to make my life easy and peaceful? Well, God, why did we get a bad diagnosis? Or why is this hard? Or why is it so expensive? Or all these kinds of things. It's no, this is the ministry. Suffering is a major part of our ministry. This is how we do it. It's the way of the cross. And I think it's highlighted for me a couple of things that we mix up the way of Jesus and the American dream way too often. The American dream is not I'm going to get married, have kids, have a healthy family, nice house, pay my bills, have a good job, retire, move to Florida. That might be the American dream, but it's not God's dream for our life. And, his dream comes with suffering because one day Jesus will return to make things new, but we're not there yet. This life, the Bible, Jesus says in this life, you will have trouble.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, God, why do I have trouble? He's like, well, I said you're going to have trouble. I'm like,
I said that.
I'm like, well, why'd you say that? Like, why does it have to be that way? But I think we constantly feel like the weight of this. And so for me, it's like even when you had your recurrence, my first thought was like, how do I lead well in this? Because in the past, I feel like maybe I allowed things to get too chaotic, and I'm getting better at like crisis leadership, crisis management, learning how to preach when I'm sad, learning how to like show up to work when I don't feel like it, learning how to care for you when I'm exhausted, learning how to have hard conversations with you when you're asking hard questions. We're in our bed at night and you're like, well, God, what if God doesn't heal me? Or what if I don't get to see my kids grow up? And like learning how to have those conversations together between us and
being a safe place for me to be able to do that.
Exactly.
I really appreciate.
Which as a guy, I don't like that's like some assembly required. Like that's not like something I start with knowing how to do, but and then caring well for you, because I go back to like, with what you've gone through, it's just like, man, you deserve nothing but the best care. And, and so a lot has happened in that. A couple more questions. How has this impacted you as a pastor's wife? Let's talk about being a mom and being a wife.
A pastor's wife. I feel bad. I can't remember people's names. I wanted to know everybody's names. Yes, maybe I feel a little less close to people. I wish that I was a little bit more like, I love it and I love everybody, but sometimes I'm like, I kind of feel a little bit overwhelmed. And there's people, and I want to get coffee with everybody. We can just go chat, and I just can't. And so that's maybe like something that, I'm very thankful for the people that I am very close with. I don't know if that's the right answer to that question, but it feels like a little bit less just like so close with everybody all the time. And that's also kids. And that's also, the churches and all that stuff. But.
It's funny, like the BC, like obviously before Christ or whatever, or before Common Era, whatever they say it is. BC also works like before cancer.
Before cancer.
Our BC life. And like, it blows my mind that people that have come post 21 or 22, they don't know what you were like, and they don't, in some ways don't know what I was like. Like we're different people through this, which is, I think is a part of this whole thing. We're different people. And like, we were much more having people over all the time. And now we were starting to have kids. When you have kids, that changes too. So we weren't as frequent with some of that stuff. Like people don't realize how big that.
Our little boy, he was a little bit more of a needy mama needer.
Well, yeah, same thing. We're like, but it's kind of, I feel like forced me to do what I should have always been doing, which is like early on, we knew everybody, we did everything.
Yes.
And it's like, that's not right for the church. It's not right for us, So this has forced us to like do what we're called to do. And like, there was a day back, this is just like real talk, like early on replanting, like no one would stay at the church unless we connected with them.
Yeah.
Like that was why you're going to stay at a small church early on, And yet as it's grown, it's become less about that in a good way and more about like people love the community as a whole, not just like I like John or Halcie. And that's a good transition that needs to happen anyway. And this has really forced us to be like, hey, we're going to do our part in this and we're going to make sure we do our thing, but also we're hopeful that maybe some of that recovers,
Yeah. I do love people.
Yeah,
I really love like hanging out on like the different, I love all the different leaders and people and friends.
Yeah. Couple more questions. How has this impacted our marriage? Imagine being married through something like this. Well, what's that been like for us?
That's a good question. I think that we are like really in it together. I think that the cool thing about us, which you've always been my best friend since I met you. I love you so much. There have been very like hard seasons and times, especially like the last 2.5 years or whatever. But it makes me just know that you're my best friend. Like you really are. And I love you so much. And you mean so much to me. And just like any moment with you, I just love it. And I love that I can just totally depend on you. And I just love you so much. And I wish I was different. Like I wish I was a different But anyway, I'm just very thankful for you. So
Yeah.
that's the answer.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. It's changed a lot, and I think I've been proud of us in how we've adjusted to our new dynamic, and I think that we've learned that over time and kind of accepting kind of when it's good for us to hang out now, and, what our relationship is like. And this complicates everything,
Yeah.
but I think we've adjusted. What's up?
Well, one of my favorite things, this is silly, but when we have 3 little kids and we just kind of go walk outside or like around the house or like by the house, I just loved that. And that was one of those things the kids would be in bed and we could just talk. That's my favorite thing, is just to talk. And then I'm like, and now I can't go out for the next 3 weeks because I have this thing in my hair. So stuff like that. But I'm hoping it's like makes me even more thankful when I do get that, because those times are so special. So
I do think what's also interesting is one of the things that I think people think through when they go through something like this, and this is a pretty profound thing, was I remember early on when this first happened, thinking, people ask like, what if you had known? That's like the question everybody has. What if you had known? It's like, that was like a walk to remember type of thing,
Oh, I really don't like that movie.
Yeah.
I can't think of it. I can't think of it.
Saying, like, it's like what some people like, oh, if she gets cancer and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I remember thinking once, like in all honesty, like if when 23-year-old John said I do, when I was up on stage saying for better or for worse, did I really mean it? Like, did I really mean, like, honestly, I'm not saying I didn't mean it. I'm saying like, I didn't know it would be this intense.
Yeah.
I didn't know it would be this hard. And we've been given a probably uniquely hard lot with this situation. But what I feel like God has told me is, because the question is, well, did I really mean it for better or for worse? And in some ways, when most people get married and they're young, they don't really, you can't know. You can't mean it because you don't know it. You can't say, yeah, I could do that, but you've never done that. Like,
right.
But what I've thought is, like, in this season, like 34 or whatever year old John is getting to back up 23-year-old John and follow through on his commitment. And so it's almost like you're kind of having your previous selves back, and that like, no, we're going to prove that you would mean this, you know? And like, almost like, like the question of like, did you mean it? Well, that's being decided right now. Like in the present moment, well, but you would do the same thing for me. You would do the same thing for me. So that's why, like, and so funny, you're like, I'm so sorry, Joe. Like, it's not your fault that you have cancer, like, and that's what's hard about this is we're like, you're kind of wanting to like blame somebody or something, And I think for me, at least, it's been a reminder of like what Christ says of like, the world is broken because of sin, right? Like, so if anything, this should make us angry at sin and brokenness, how God created a good world and God gave us free will, and we so often use that for the wrong thing. It should make us want to be holy and righteous and things like that. But all in all, it's an opportunity for us to display real kind of love. And so it's like those things are being decided, in real time. And so, but yeah, we have been walking together in this. We've adjusted our relationship. We've been faithful. And, I think that's hopefully an encouragement to our kids and to other people, our church and everyone watching it. It's like people will, they'll leave marriages because they don't like the person or they don't meet certain needs, and for us to be able to stick together really shows real love, and really shows like what everyone says they want. But the question is, are we willing to like put in the work? And it also reminds me of like the only way you have a good, even if someone doesn't believe in Jesus, my theory, because people say, well, how come people can have a good marriage if they're not Christian or whatever? My theory is because they don't know it, but they're loving like Jesus. They don't know it, because the only way you have a good marriage is two people serve each other radically. And who that represents? Christ.
Yeah.
And so in the same way, like for us, like washing feet, like I was just thinking about how we renewed our vows. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
6 months into you having cancer, we renewed our vows, how special the moment that was, It's like we got married there 10 years prior. But it's funny, when you get married when you're young, it's like
I was 20.
Everyone, you're as in shape as you'll ever be. You're as attractive as you'll ever be. You're as chill as you'll ever be. This is the best version of you in that sense. It's easy to say yes to that. That's not like, oh, congratulations, I was 23 and had a hot girl in front of me. And I'm saying like, yeah, for better or for worse, But it's when you get to places like this where it's like, God gives you a chance to kind of really demonstrate it, And so, and once again, obviously, I feel like for you, your faithfulness to hang in there and to keep being a wife and keep being a mom and keep serving us when I know you feel horrible sometimes. It's like, it's a treatment day, but you're still a mom and a wife, and you've been so faithful to keep pressing into that. I have no idea what that's like. I get tired sometimes, but I have my normal strength, and I can sleep for a night and wake up and feel better and, go for a run, exercise, but you can't do a lot of those things anymore. Those coping mechanisms you used to have, you don't have, but you've been faithful to continue to show up. So, final question, just how is your faith, and you can take this a million ways, how has your faith in Christ helped you in this specifically?
How has my faith in Christ
helped you in this specific nightmare, horrible scenario that nobody wants, and everyone is watching this or listening? You're living their worst case scenario. How has your faith helped you in that place?
Like in every way. It's just because God is he's so real and he's so true and he's so near and he's so kind. Like if we really believe, like we talk about it and we get it all that we hear, we believe the truth of these words, but when it's really real and he's really there and he really cares, it's like nothing. I would take the cancer if I get to be this close with him. It is so amazing and good, and just to have that much kindness that he's given to me, and just that it's not just like words, it's just real, true. His word is true. He is true. He is near. He holds me like never before. And so for me, it has helped me. So I would take this again, because if I get to be this close to Jesus, it's just so worth it. So that would be my, if maybe people who don't feel close, or if they don't know him, just trust me, because it's so worth it. And he's so good.
Well, and I can testify for you. I'm sure some people hear that and they think, okay, of course she's going to say that, pastor's wife, or just knowing your personality. But no, I'm saying but I know you're the real deal. You mean that. Like that is, you were up at 5 a.m. on your knees praying to the Lord. I've seen it happen. It's real. I just want to
he just holds me.
It's the real
little
deal.
Kid.
I think from my perspective, it's different, because you're like the faithful, you're the golden retriever, you're going to be faithful. I'm more the pragmatic person. So I'm the person in terms of my faith, what's been interesting for me, because I've asked the hard questions. Why, God, this sucks. Why are we doing this? Are you there? We're asking for stuff, and I've even asked the questions I've had doubts in this, but what's really cool about that is even in the Bible, we see God takes people through those seasons to grow you. And I've experienced that, to where it's God's okay, yeah, where else will you go?
Yeah.
And so it's better to be with God and be mad at him than to be all alone in this universe.
Yeah.
That's the stuff you realize in moments like this, where you've really got big decisions to make and you're asking the hard questions and you're wrestling with your faith and all these things that you're working through. I've had a lot of that in this season more than ever before, but it's just another opportunity for God to root you in a deeper belief that helps your life and your ministry and your faith every day moving forward. And so my thing would be because some people might look at our situation, I'm sure people have thought this and been well, they're people of faith, but look, they've still got a really hard life and situation, or they've prayed for something that hasn't happened yet. And, man, how good is it? I'm just saying when you're in our shoes, that's really when you need God. And that's I'm so glad I have my faith, because it's been the only sense of comfort that I've logically had in this is the sovereignty of God and the goodness of God. And the fact that I do believe God made everything and he's with us, and the existence in reality only makes sense with God. And I believe he's good. I believe his word reveals he's good. This would not be better without God. This would not make more sense without God. This would not be less confusing without God. All those things would only increase. And so just to I have seen that in this moment, to where it's better to be confused and sometimes frustrated with God than just, like I said, alone in this universe. And so I've just man, it really doubled down everything I believe. And I think for the rest of my life will carry a boldness that I'm so glad that I have.
Yeah.
So, but,
Amen.
so we're, like I said, you just had your second surgery. We're about to start another round of chemo probably here pretty soon.
Yep.
So any final thoughts or anything for anyone watching you want to say?
No, I just pray for you and that you know him and love him and walk with him.
So thank you so much for watching this. And if you have any comments, I know a lot of people kind of resonate with the story. Feel free to drop them in the comments wherever you're watching or listening to this. Also, share this episode with somebody. Share this content. I mean, this is a very real story. And for some reason, we have found, I say for some reason, obviously it's very intense. And so that's why it resonates. I know why. But we want this to be an encouragement to people. And I think this is the kind of stuff where God really shows his glory. So also, if you want to reach out to us, I know some people are watching this. Maybe you have glioblastoma. Maybe you have a hard time in your life. Maybe you're going through something. I know people will see this. Like, feel free to kind of reach out to us. We want to be encouragement to you and whatever you're walking through. So love you guys. And thank you so much for walking with us as we share a part of our journey here today. God bless you guys.
Bless you.